Bewitched.
LA is a wild and crazy place, but if you'd like to be in show business, this is the place to be. There are so many actors, actresses, writers, producers, directors, you name it, they're here. I'm Carrie Peterson, and this is my sister Kelly. In November of 1990, we came to Los Angeles to introduce you to our grandfather, television comedy producer Harry Ackerman. Unfortunately, he died in the early month of February, 1991, shortly after we had interviewed him. We're going to take a look at some of the outstanding work Harry has done in his life. We asked Harry what it takes to be a TV comedy producer.
Probably a bit of nuttiness.
But that's not all, he said.
Some stick-to-itiveness, a desire to be a producer, and a knowledge of how to work with people and stories and writers.
I wouldn't doubt it if Harry really was at home in his control room. He has produced shows since the 1940s for radio and then television. He has produced shows such as I Love Lucy and amazingly brought Lucille Ball from radio to television, along with Amos and Annie, The Jack Benny Show, Burns and Allen, and many other shows. He has also brought the look and laughter of Dennis the Menace, Bewitched, and our all-time favorite, Leave It to Beaver. Harry Ackerman brought the look of the typical all-American family to television. He would take a problem and make it seem so difficult to solve. Yet, it could always be done. If only those problems could be done in reality. He just seemed to get the point across that kids should respect their parents, friends, and teachers.
Just a minute. Beaver, did you learn your lesson this weekend?
Oh, gee, Dad, I didn't have to learn anything. All I had to do was write.
No, Beaver. What I'm talking about is this business of putting things off till the very last minute.
Yeah, Dad.
Harry showed a great sense of respect in a new form of comedy. Bewitched is a good example of comedy. He experimented and showed what special effects could be done on TV. He proved to be an extraordinary independent producer.
You all right?
I think so.
Well, I'm sorry about that flock of geese we ran into. I didn't see them.
Well, in the first place, it wouldn't hurt if you looked where you were flying. And in the second place...
Harry has had the opportunity to work with many, many well-known people. Or, should I say, they have had the opportunity to work with him. Here's Judy Garland and Harry. Desi Arnaz, Vivian Vance, Lucille Ball and Harry. Art Linkletter and Red Buttons. John Wayne and CBS executive Howard Juslingham. Bob Hope. And Elizabeth Montgomery accepting an award. We've introduced you to Harry and some of his work. Now you're going to see and hear an interview taped of Harry in his home in North Hollywood. Since this is the last interview taped of Harry, we are going to run it in its entirety.
Did you use that education to pursue show business?
Well, as I indicated, I did some playwriting and acting in college, and when I came out, I was interviewed on an NBC program about the Ice Carnival pageant, which I had written that year for Dartmouth, and the man who was the star of the show that interviewed me put me under contract, and I was his assistant and an announcer on the show for a year.
Given that you were involved in I Love Lucy and radio, can you tell us something about the problems it incurred from the transition from radio to television and the development of the three-camera television?
Well, that's a long, involved story. In the first place, Lucy never was a radio show, only a television series. But I put Lucille Ball under contract for a radio series called My Favorite Husband. And we did that for 4 years. And then as television came nearer on the horizon, she and her husband, Desi Arnaz, decided that they would only work together in television because his work kept him on the road with his band, and she could only make a living in Hollywood. So ultimately, I put Desi under contract to CBS, where I was at the time, and in due course, we developed the I Love Lucy concept.
Harry, in your opinion, what does it take to be a producer?
I don't know. Probably a bit of nuttiness, some stick-to-itiveness, a desire to be a producer, and a knowledge of how to work with people and stories and writers.
What inspired you to be a producer?
Well, originally in radio days, I was a director, and I directed many radio series for an advertising agency called Young and Rubicam in the days when the agencies and their sponsors owned the shows, as against today on television when the networks own most of the shows. After 11 years at Young and Rubicam, I was invited by CBS to join them in New York as executive producer. And therefore, I was an executive. And when I was transferred by CBS to California, some 6 months later, I became vice president in charge of programs, West Coast for CBS. And ultimately, another 11 years later, when I left CBS to become an independent producer, my first production was a show called Leave It to Beaver. And at the same time, I developed a series called Bachelor Father. So I wasn't an actual producer until those shows.
In television, were there any other jobs besides producing that you did, like directing, writing, acting, or perhaps running the studio?
No, I've been pretty much a producer all my life since I left CBS. I haven't directed in television. I do a certain amount of writing because I create many shows myself and write them up and give them to writers to execute into scripts. But I have never claimed to be a writer per se.
What was your first show on television, and how did it turn out?
Well, at CBS, I converted my radio series, Miss Brooks, into a television series. And I've already told you about how I Love Lucy happened. Those are my first two. And ultimately, as the chief executive in California for CBS, I was in charge of Jack Benny and Burns and Allen and Edgar Bergen and Amos and Andy and all kinds of other shows.
Of all the productions you've been involved with, which is your favorite?
Well, I have to say that at a given time, there were many favorites. At the given time, my first solo production, Leave It to Beaver, was certainly a favorite of mine, as was Bachelor Father. Prior to that, of course, I had enjoyed developing Miss Brooks and helping develop I Love Lucy. And later on in my career, I loved creating shows like Bewitched and The Flying Nun and things of that kind.
How did you feel when you had your name and star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
I felt great. And how did it happen? It happened because the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, after studying my career for about 3 years, decided to invite me. And I had the star installed by them, I guess, about 3 or 4 years ago. And you young ladies were there. I remember it well.
Is the Hollywood Walk of Fame mostly actors, producers, musicians, or directors?
It's all of those and stars as well.
Do you have any exciting behind-the-scenes stories you'd like to share with us, funny, sad, or just plain silly, about the productions that you've worked on?
Oh, I'm sure there are dozens of stories if I had the time to think of them. One funny thing comes to mind because it's so impossible, but it did happen. And this was in the case of Bewitched, where the director, instead of our putting in sound effects, or trying to put in sound effects during the filming of the shows, the director will often ad-lib an effect, like for a front door, he'll go bebop or something like that, and later on, during the dubbing and editing sessions, we will put in a doorbell ring. And in this particular instance of a show, he did do that, and we went through the long editing process, the dubbing process, and I was sitting at home one night watching that particular episode on the air, and there came the director's voice saying, "Bebop." Somehow, with all of the people watching and editing and dubbing and scoring, nobody had ever caught that and put it as sound effect.
Are you currently working on any projects?
Yes, I have a new movie that I'm doing for Lorimar Entertainment, and it's called Broom Dancer, and it's laid in the early West and features 3 teenagers and an aging gunfighter, and I'm very high on it. I'm also working on a new comedy series that I have personally created, and which I hope will be on the air like a year from today.
What's that about?
It's about the teenagers and the aging gunfighter, and it's a very unusual series in that it starts in a whorehouse in the early West, and the girl is there because her mother was there before her, and her mother died, and the 2 boys are what they call broom dancers. They sweep up and clean up after drunken cowboys, and ultimately one of the boys accidentally kills the bad owner of the establishment, and they have to escape, and they take the girl with them. And at first, the gunfighter is after them for their bounty, and ultimately he has to throw in with them because they're all being chased by a posse of really cruel people. And it becomes a teenage love story. It's very effective, I think.
As you look into the future, are there any predictions you have for the fate of television, maybe cable-oriented?
I'm not a great reader of the future, but I do know that the network audiences are falling off percentage-wise very badly, and the inroads are chiefly being made by cable companies, which people are watching more and more. So I think that somewhere down the line, maybe around the year 2000, there may or may not be any networks anymore. There may be just, you may get all of your programs from huge satellites and choose what you want.
Do you have any special awards you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'm very pleased with a star on Hollywood Boulevard, as you know. I've also received a few Emmys in my time for Bewitched and Suspense and other shows that I was responsible for. And I also have 4 presidential Emmys, meaning that I was twice president of the Hollywood chapter of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and twice national president.
Harry received many awards for his work, but the one he was most proud of was receiving his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Not many people receive such an honor. I remember that day he was given his own star. I was there. You could easily see the happiness in his eyes. He was so proud, not only proud of himself, but proud of his surroundings, the people he worked with, his family, his friends, and all of Hollywood. When Harry gave his speech, you could too feel the wonderful sensation of him accepting the award. It was unbelievable. At one point in his life, Harry was offered the presidency of CBS Television by Bill Paley and Frank Stanton, but declined so he could keep on producing TV shows.
Harry Ackerman was born in the year 1913 and unfortunately died early in 1991. Harry will never be forgotten in the view of our family's eyes, nor the view of Hollywood's. He lived a very successful life. In our thoughts, he is still alive. And on American television screens, his work will never die.